Discutăm în continuare despre războiul din Ucraina. Acesta este primul război al dronelor, iar incursiunea ucraineană în Kursk este un posibil semnal pentru începerea negocierilor de pace. Sunt declarațiile unui veteran al Forțelor Speciale ale Armatei SUA cu o carieră de peste 35 de ani în domeniul securității și siguranței militare. Fostul secretar al apărării SUA, Christopher Miller, a comentat într-un interviu pentru Euronews România situația de pe front din Ucraina, precum și implicațiile pentru România, asta în situația în care Turcia va deveni membra blocului de țări BRICS, care a fost fondat de Rusia și China. Mr. Christopher Miller, thank you very much for being with us today. I'm very welcome you at Euronews Romania.
Vitalie, I am so honored to be here. It's so good to be back in Romania. I was here in November. It was my first visit, and to be back here at this time of year with so much going on in the world and to be in your show is just a great honor, and thank you for having me.
I would like to start this conversation about the war in Ukraine, of course, because it's the biggest threat to Europe. So what do you think about the last events in Ukraine? I'm interested particularly in Ukraine's actions in Kursk. What do you think about that?
Absolutely brilliant move, an operation by the Ukrainian military. As you know, I was in the United States Army for many years as an infantryman and then as a Green Beret, a Special Forces soldier. And I always thought that Ukraine oftentimes has a great degree of innovation and flexibility. And what they did was technically called a spoiling attack, where they attacked into Russia and changed the entire battlefield dynamics and forced the Russians, now Putin, to respond to something that they did not expect. I thought it was brilliant, and I'm very hopeful that this will show Putin that continuing the war is a lost cause and that it's time to begin negotiations to bring this horrible war to an end.
Do you think this Ukrainian action will bring us to the negotiation, or it's, let's say, it worsen the situation because of a new front? It's in Russia right now, so I don't know if Russians are thinking about negotiations.
I don't know. That's why it's so important for me to come to this region, because when you're in the United States, oftentimes the news is filtered and you don't understand completely what's going on. So that's why it's so valuable for me to come here and listen to Romanians. And also, I've been to Ukraine 3 times. And you have a whole different perspective when you come here from the United States. So I don't want to be predictive because this is in your backyard, and it would be arrogant of me to make a projection or make a prediction. I think the incursion has been very effective in showing Putin that his plan, no matter what his generals say, because the generals always say everything will be fine.
The Russian generals?
The Russian generals.
Or every generals in the world?
I don't think I should say every general in the world, but many generals always highlight that they have timelines and they say things will happen in this way. I think this really shows Putin that his generals and his military is overstretched. And that incursion, and it was such historic ground, of course. Kursk is the greatest tank battle in the history of the world occurred there. So I'm very hopeful that the message has been sent that the Ukrainians have the ability to strike where and when they want, and hopefully stop the onslaught that's happening in the Donetsk region.
Do you see any objectives of these Ukrainian actions? I mean, military or political or economical objectives? Because this is the main question after we figure out what's happened in Russia with the Ukrainian actions.
Far be it from me to talk on behalf of the Ukrainian military, President Zelensky, but I'm hopeful that this was a very strategic move to signal that it's time to begin negotiations, that obviously freeze the war, do some sort of swap of land. That's my hope. I don't think I'm in a position to say definitively, but that seems in the Ukrainian military, as you have seen, has been extremely effective in offensive operations, but when the war grinds to a World War I trench warfare like we see, that is when it's the advantage of let's be honest, the Soviet type of doctrine and strategy of just grinding down because they have so many resources and so many people. So with the offensive in the north, it clearly, desynchronizes Putin's army. And I also think what we're really seeing, I expected a huge Russian counterattack. What I'm really seeing right now, when I think about it, and I don't have access to any of the intelligence or anything like that, but I think the Russian military is extremely stretched. The Ukrainians have knocked out so much of their equipment that I think it's signaling to me that the Russian military is almost spent and out of energy, because I thought they would counterattack in that region and just try to do something really dramatic, and we haven't seen it yet.
So for me to understand correctly, you think that we could be near, and the negotiation could be near to us after these actions more than ever?
That's my hope. That certainly has got the attention of Putin, and hopefully will open up an opportunity to start serious negotiations. Mm-hmm.
You have a big experience. You are a former Secretary of Defense. You're saying about your experience in Beretta. You have been in war. What do you think, getting all this of experience, what will be the future of this war? If we could see it for years of going on and on, or that resources are so limited that we could see an end of war soon as possible?
I certainly hope that this war comes to an end soon. It's been such tragedy for all involved. I think the lesson I really have learned from Putin's actions, I recall President Ronald Reagan, who said, peace through strength. And what I hope has happened, and I hope Putin understands this, is NATO and the freedom-loving people of the world have stood up against his tyrannical act of invading a sovereign country. I'm obviously horribly concerned that they have so many resources that they could have some sort of breakthrough. And then, of course, Romania is on the front lines all of a sudden. So what I've learned is, only through standing up to Putin's tyranny are we going to be successful in stopping his offensive actions. I'm very, it really started in 2014, as you know, where Putin invaded Crimea, and really the world just kind of said, don't do that again. And I'm very concerned that what we're seeing, I'm a pseudo-historian, and you read about those discrete actions that occurred before World War I and World War II, that the world kind of said it's not that big of a deal. Well, what I'm seeing right now is we have to continue to stand up. I want to highlight something that was very important. The Romanian leadership of sending Patriot missile batteries to Ukraine yesterday, I think, exemplifies exactly what we're talking about, where all nations have to stand up and do what they can. Otherwise, Putin is going to continue to move to the West, and that's the reason this partnership between the United States and Romania is so critical.
You mentioned this Patriot system. It's a big discussion in Romania. We are agreed to donate it, but the thing is, in how long time we could get another one here in Romania? And the last question, it will be, this puts Romania in a risk because we don't have one of Patriot system here?
I think you highlight something that has been a very important lesson learned. In the American military, we always talk about lessons learned, is the recognition that our defense industrial base, making military equipment and defense material, we have such high-tech systems now that it takes forever to make them and deliver them. I think Romania, you waited 5 years for Patriots to be delivered here. Well, obviously that's too long. And you literally being on the front lines with 600 kilometers of border with Ukraine, you have an existential threat on your border. And what the problem is right now is these high-tech weapons are so few, and there's a transition in warfare right now. We're going from very high-quality weapons that, frankly, were very effective in defeating the Soviet Union during the Cold War to where quantity matters more than quality. And we also were seeing autonomous warfare. That's the biggest lesson we've seen coming out of Ukraine, right, is all of a sudden we have drones flying every which way and really transforming the nature of warfare. And we in the West have not transitioned our industrial base and our capacity to building huge quantities of inexpensive, attritable, throwaway weapon systems. And that's why it's very concerning to me. It took 5 years for Romania to be delivered their Patriots. You, of course, made this incredibly bold and courageous decision to donate those to the Ukrainians that are in the front lines because, heaven forbid, there's a breakthrough. All of a sudden, Romania is on the front lines. But you need to be supplied weapons more rapidly. One of the things that I'm here to do, which is really a passion for me, is we have to disperse our industrial capacity. It can't just be in a few places. So Romania used to have one of the greatest defense industries in the world. Of course, with the world changed and a lot of us didn't think there was a major threat and we kind of did away with a lot of our defense industry. Well, we need to reestablish that again. And I think there's great opportunities to partner between the United States and Romania to take some of our industrial capacity in Romania. Come on. Incredibly brilliant people, great workforce that wants to work in Romania as opposed to go someplace else, and also this need and also a history of being able to produce world-class quality defense armaments. So that's our goal here, is to further that partnership, bring technology and with workforce and intellect, combine them and present Putin a very serious dilemma now. It's right here in Romania.
What kind of system of warfare do you think we could produce in Romania, and we are ready to do this?
You have proven you can make first world-class jet engines, aircraft. I think I heard a rumor that Silicon Valley, the largest population of people that are working there from outside the United States are Romanians. I don't know if it's true or not.
There are a few of them, yes.
I think it's probably true.
They're speaking Romanian, yeah. A lot of them. Yeah.
So what I think is really important is the recognition that with advanced manufacturing that exists here in Romania, you can build an enormous number of attritable weapon systems, autonomous weapon systems, drones, which I think are the key thing right now, that you can create enormous capability with a large number of attritable, expendable weapon systems. So I think that's perfectly in line with what you're doing here in Romania that we want to be part of. The other thing is, I think it's important to recognize, I don't need to tell the Romanian people of the threat that you have Russian drones oftentimes entering your airspace, which is horrendous. The ability to counter those drones through what we call counter drone systems in Romania, produce the radars, produce the cameras. You already do, and integrate those. And the key piece on this is going to be an inexpensive weapon system, a missile that can defeat the drone. Now, what we're seeing right now is, if you shoot a Patriot missile at, I don't know how much it is, probably $1 million a missile, against a doggone Iranian-made drone that costs $25,000, that is a recipe for bankruptcy. So I think Romania is the perfect place to expand the defense industrial base and produce high-tech weapon systems that are also really, really inexpensive to use.
You are speaking about drones, and how I understand, maybe the figures are not right, but there are very interesting things in what's happening in Ukrainian war with Russia. I saw like for one military on the field, there is 1 or 2 drones that they are managed. So this is like drones war, the first in history drones war.
You just described it perfectly. This is the first drone war, and it will not be the last. Can you imagine when I joined the Army in 1983, and I was in an infantry squad of 12 people then, you know how we found the enemy? You walked until you ran into them. Okay. Even the best intelligence. Now think about this infantry squad. They can have a small drone that they can send up that can scout ahead of them. They identify the enemy. Now they can call in fires, or better yet, they can pull another drone out of their backpack, launch it to destroy the target. It is the most revolutionary element of warfare I have seen. People talk about global positioning system. People talk about precision-guided munitions. What we are seeing right now is the democratization of technology down to the lowest level. I cannot highlight dramatically enough how powerful that is. And oftentimes, and of all places, Romania knows this. They have these big companies come in from Western Europe or from the United States or from Israel or South Africa that promise all of these very high-tech weapons and whatnot, and then it takes forever to deliver them, and then they probably don't work very well. And they always want to try to say that it's revolutionary. What we're really seeing, and that's what needs to be produced here in Romania. You don't need to be spending your money on bringing that in from outside. That should all be produced here.
Interesting is that Russians are using also drones. Ukrainian using drones, Russian using drones. Who is most effective in this war of drones?
And it changes every single week because the rapid cycle of innovation now from how long has the Patriot missile system been in existence? Since 1987, 88. Right now what we're seeing is if you cannot innovate and rapidly change your tactics, techniques, and procedures, do you know, like right now on both sides of the line of conflict in Ukraine, they're changing the frequencies of their drones every week, which then causes they'll be effective for a couple days until you can figure out what the new frequency is.
This happened because they just have to destroy drones to put them down. This is why it happened.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why this back and forth, we can't wait for 4 to 5 years to receive something. It has to be changing weekly, and that's really what I think is the genius of what can happen here in Romania. Is you're right on you're near the front lines. You're getting all that feedback much faster than any company in the United States, which allows you to innovate and iterate more rapidly, and that's really the future of warfare. And that's why we're really, really excited to be here and figuring out how we can partner to collaborate on that.
There is another thing of innovation in war. Of course, it's sadly people are dying, but we see how war is innovating things. We saw artificial intelligence used in this war. It seems to me, correct me if not, it seems being first war with artificial intelligence used in battles. My thoughts and my question is more ethical. I mean, I just want to understand if it's right to a robot to decide to kill a human being. This is ethical?
I think Romania is much like the United States military, which has absolutely proclaimed there will always be a human being that controls that algorithm and controls the decision whether it is used, we have to be honest, I could say lethal effects to kill other human beings. That's like the most important decision any human being can ever make, and we take that enormously seriously in the United States. So our policy, and I do not see this changing, is a human being will always be involved in that decision to use an algorithm. I think what we're going to see, though, is artificial intelligence allows an increase in decision making. So there's going to be a point, I guarantee it, in warfare, we literally are seeing, this is like, remember World War I where airplanes were first used, and, the biplanes, and frankly, Romania was the leader in aviation technology. We in the United States always like to talk about the Wright brothers, but then I come to Romania and I go see all the geniuses here in Romania that actually invented manned flight. And you remember, you see the biplanes and the pilots would have a hand grenade and they would drop it. That's kind of where we are with artificial intelligence right now. It's very, very rudimentary. If we were going to talk a football game, and when I say football, I mean I don't mean soccer. I mean football. I mean soccer is the American version of football. We're literally in minute 2 of the game here. We're just starting. So what inevitably is going to happen is a human being is going to be involved, but you're going to flip the switch and there's going to be an automated war close at hand. The key thing you can't do is weapons of mass destruction, chemical weapons, nuclear weapons, biological weapons. That will never happen. I know in a NATO country or in the United States that those decisions will be automated. But I think what we're going to see, and we're seeing the first kind of hints of this, we've already seen it in Ukraine, is autonomous warfare in a localized setting you're going to have to use those tools if you want to maintain your ability to defend yourself.
Yeah. One other main thing is we are in super election year. I mean, in Romania we have election, in Europe you have a lot of elections, also in United States. It's not a political question. I'm just wondering if it doesn't matter who will win election in USA. Do you think Ukraine will get more or less help from US if one or another party will win the election?
That is literally the great question that I don't know if I can answer it effectively. You never want to speak for presidential candidates. They get to make their own mind and make their own decisions. I believe there's a recognition finally in the United States that this war has to end, and the only way it's going to end is through a massive show of support and force, because only with that is Putin going to realize that his efforts he's taken advantage of kind of this fragmentation of NATO and fragmentation of the political system in the United States.
Yeah,
I don't want to speak for Romania, obviously, far be it for me, but I like your point, fragmentation of democracy. We're seeing that. I am hopeful that there's a recognition now that Putin has to be stopped. If he's not stopped, the war will continue and expand. I think the only thing autocrats and totalitarian dictators understand is force. And I think that's the recognition of that fact is finally dawning on both sides in the United States. I will leave it to you whether the rest of Europe recognizes that.
You said Putin should be stopped. Define stopped.
I anticipate there's going to have to be some sort of ceasefire. You think about some of these frozen wars. The Russian manpower is just so enormous. The Ukrainians are fighting tooth and nail for every foot of territory, but that huge Russian steamroller just keeps moving. So I think there has to be a negotiated settlement that will start with the ceasefire and the freezing of the line of control. I don't know precisely how many Ukrainian non-Russian supporters are still in the contested areas, but and then get it stopped and then work through the process. I mean, look at Cyprus, where Greeks and the Turks are still arguing about that, but there hasn't been a killing there in how many years. I think that might be a model.
We have this news these days about Turkey that willing to join BRICS. It's founded by Russia and China. So, regarding this Black Sea region, how concerned should we be about the idea of Turkey entered in BRICS?
I think energy security is essential. I think your efforts to increase the supply of energy is, really, really important. I think the sovereignty of what Romania is doing and other countries are doing should not be dictated by Turkey. And I know there are all sorts of agreements from the past, but ultimately, I mean, that's a Romanian decision. And I think that protecting that infrastructure is going to be very, very important. But Turkey itself and this, I think Erdogan plays a very weak hand of cards in, I don't know, very, very well. And I think he's another example of someone we probably should all combine and make sure he understands the reality of what freedom and democracy stand for. And your point with, Turkey's role in the region should be helpful and not an additional problem. We have enough problems right now with Putin. I get concerned about when I see all of your investment in the Black Sea, and to think that, right now, with a few bad decisions by some bad actors, that infrastructure could be threatened. And back to our point about changing nature of warfare, just think about drones and whatnot. And I mean, I think we have to rethink how we protect ourselves and our infrastructure, and that's one of the things that really bothers me and concerns me.
But in this point, could Romania gain a much more preeminent status as the main American outpost in region because of we could be concerned of what's happening to Turkish nation? I mean, this is a NATO member, and now NATO member will be member also of BRICS.
I can't imagine that happening. I would hope that the community of NATO stands up and sends a strong message to Mr. Erdogan that would be a huge mistake.
But what about the role of Romania? Could be rise up because of these concerns about what Erdogan is doing?
I know there's been a recognition. I served President Trump, as you know. President Trump recognized that NATO needed to move east, and as we see right now, Poland and Romania and Latvia, Estonia, and Lithuania are extremely important, and I think we've shown that our seriousness, we, the United States, recognizing that only through closer partnerships with Romania particularly are we going to be able to effectively deter those that mean ill will towards the democracies of Europe.
You said you cannot imagine Turkey being a member of BRICS, but if that happens, what could be the implication, political, economical implication? And I will ask you a particular question about the nuclear weapon in Incursiunea. There are rumors some years ago about moving them to Deveselu. So my question is, if that's happening, these weapons could move to Deveselu?
I don't know. I'm not up to date on our posture, the United States posture on that stuff. I do fundamentally, though. Those are the questions that Turkey and I hate to. I always that's why I always talk about Putin. I don't talk about the Russian people, because I don't think we should lump an entire population and say they're all bad. That's why in Turkey I focus on Erdogan and his desire to maintain power, increase his power. I think he's an extremely savvy politician. He's survived this long. I think he will understand that if he tries something like that, it will have really negative impact on his ability to maintain power. I'm not suggesting that there would be some sort of, effort to remove him. I think the people of Turkey get to decide that. But, these types of leaders only have a certain shelf life before, I'm speaking to the people of Romania who understand that better than I ever will, that there comes a time where there needs to be a change and the people need to be heard. And I don't think the people of Turkey fully understand the impact of some of the actions that Erdogan has taken.
For my last question about the strategic partnership between Romania and USA, we have more than 30 years of this partnership. I would like to understand what you think is the main objective goals for USA in Romania.
We in the United States have never been about dominance or power or colonialism or anything like that. We've always been stood up and stand by those freedom-loving people. Romania is a great example. But here's where I really think we need to talk about. We need to talk about the economics of this relationship, because ultimately the free market system is so powerful. I think the economic element is critical to furthering our relationship. We spend $4 billion a year here in Romania. You spend $18 billion invested in the United States. What we want to do is increase that economic cooperation. I think that's critical, because when you have a prosperous nation that can defend itself, that creates all sorts of enormous economic opportunities. I know many people in the United States are like, why are we involved in Ukraine? Well, because if we don't defend there, can you imagine the economic implications if Putin continues to move? So Romania is literally on the front lines. Our dedication to furthering those bonds of friendship, I think, really come down to economic prosperity.
Your point is good, because the trade exchange between USA and Romania is less than Hungary, Poland, or Czech Republic. Even Czech and Hungary is less populated than Romania. So we're thinking why we had such a lower trade exchange with USA than this other country, because we are competing with them, but we don't know why that is happening.
I think it's familiarization. I think, many people in the United States aren't completely aware of how important Romania is to the protection of NATO and ultimately the United States. And that's really one of the key things that I'm trying to do, and that's why I'm so honored to be on your show, to be able to talk to the Romanian people, to I want to accelerate that. And I don't think it's like malice in the United States. I think it's really about communication and more interactions like this. So that's what I'm committed to. And we need to change that. We need to change those numbers. We need to get more U.S. investment in here. And that's really what we're committed to and want to be part of that solution.
Mr. Miller, thank you very much for being with us, and thank you for answering to this question.
Thanks for what you're doing.